All right. Shabbat shalom, everybody. Shabbat shalom. I'm just going to start with prayer. We're just going to go ahead and get into it today. So, dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We ask for you to forgive us of our sins and the sins of our ancestors. Thank you for waking us up this morning. Thank you for your grace, mercy, and truth, Father. We ask for you to lead us and guide us into all truth and to protect us from the deceptions, Father. We ask for you to return health into our neighbors, Father, and we just ask for you to remove the stony heart and the stiff-necked hearts and minds of our people, Father, so that we can be a nation prepared and ready, Father, for the marriage supper, Father. We just ask for you to provide healing to us, protection, the insights, the wisdom, the prophecies, Father, the knowledge of the things to come and how to move forward, the spirit of discernment, Father. In Yahushua's mighty name. Amen. So we're continuing with last week's lesson on Ezekiel and the end times. Last time there were a few videos that I didn't get a chance to show, so I'm gonna at least show. I'll probably show two of them. So fair use. This is for educational and training purposes only. Fair use. This is for educational and training purposes only. Right. So I'm not gonna show this video, but if you're not aware, the Ayatollah, the supreme leader of Iran, recently came out and basically said that the American strike did not do as well as it has been reported. It was barely a setback to them. And again, basically anywhere in the United States is on site or wherever we're stationed at. So in this time, people just be vigilant and stay prayerful. Definitely stay prayerful. So again, this is what Trump's saying, that they obliterated everything, but we're not going to show that. So now last week I did talk about sleeper cells. So we're going to watch this clip from Marfugo News where they talk about sleeper cells here in America.
But the U.S. did 3 major strikes. The videos of these strikes are, just short of looking nuclear. Again, on 3 different locations in Iran. We have now officially joined the conflict. I mean, if anybody really thought that we weren't already a part of it, then I don't know what to say. I've been saying since the beginning and since right before, of course, when we were moving defenses, before we even had the last peace talk with Iran, moving in drone defenses to our Middle Eastern forces. Like, I knew this was going to happen. I've been saying it for 2 weeks. I said, this is something that everybody could see coming. It's not like our community didn't see this, right? But what's so crazy is all of our friends and family, they have no idea where this came from. And a lot of people are watching this. I already talked to a bunch of people. I was around a bunch of people this weekend. Today, I was with my parents-in-laws and some other folks. And it's like nobody really grasped the severity of what just happened, right? So, of course, we knew that the U.S. obviously had the back and forth. They said, Netanyahu said he wouldn't, strike them and tell them basically that, negotiations aren't going anywhere. Before the last Sunday that they had set up, they had been talking for 4 weeks saying, these negotiations, they're just stalling until they can make a nuke, and we need to take out their nuclear devices. Now, what is even crazier is everybody's arguing about, about us joining this thing. But what if there really was information that they were creating a nuke or that they were planning this attack that our president has talked about since 2018? If you don't know what I'm talking about, the reason they took out Soleimani back in 2018 was because the president said that they had planned an event that would make 2001 look like chicken feed. Now, I doubt this, just like everybody else in our community doubts that, it could have been Ganda, it could have been this, it could have been that, it could have been just totally made up to take the guy out. But at the same time, you have to wonder, was there this big attack that, got postponed, but is still on its way? In December of this year, Sarah Adams, which again, a lot of people say this woman is an ex-CIA targeter analyst. She went on Sean Ryan's show, which is also an ex-CIA guy, so they're both spooks, said with open source information that she is predicting that over 1,000 people from Iran are in this country, sleeper cells, that are basically waiting for a kind of a sign, right? And that simultaneously, you'll also have...
Now, y'all did hear what he just said, right? He just said that over 1,000 people, right, in America. I'm probably saying you might want to multiply that by 5. Because of all the illegal immigration that's been going on, right? Sleeper cells waiting for a sign here in America. Be alert, be vigilant. Don't fall for these people that got all these road rage incidents and none of that. Leave that stuff alone. Take care of your home and get back home safe. All right, I'm gonna keep going.
1,000 people in Europe kind of just go all off and do a horrible event. If there was ever any chance of that kind of thing happening, it would be right now. Again, there's going to be a lot of people that are afraid by this. Not our community. Our community has looked at this. We've seen this coming a million miles away. I mean, if somebody jumps out of a garbage can, you get scared and then you get angry, right? Well, in this case, people are only getting scared and they're just not, they don't know what to do. But if somebody jumps out of a garbage can 500 yards away and is waving at you the whole time, you're not going to get scared when you get close, right? That's how I feel about this. It's like we knew this was going to happen. And as preppers, we're looking at the potential possibilities around it, right? EMP attack on the United States, sleeper cells activating. And if you think sleeper cells aren't a thing, I would just really try to remember the last 4 years and how many people were coming in and how many people did not get caught and how many people were let go. And then really question yourself, why did they let them go? Why weren't they doing background checks until their court date? It was like there was somebody that had already infiltrated. They had essentially looked the other way and said, yeah, go through this way, and gave them room and time and even rides to set this thing up. I feel like a lot of people are going to, very apprehensive to believe anything right now, and I don't blame you. But one thing we do know is that the U.S. just officially struck 3 locations, Estefana, Natanz, and I forget the third one. But they did it in such a big fashion, the president said that the nuclear facilities are obliterated. Now, in the last couple weeks, I've actually kind of shifted my view to, let's get this over with, take Iran out if you're going to take Iran out. And at this point, they have now joined. Nobody wants war. There's the no war faction. There's the no war. There's no supporting Israel faction. There's Iran needs to wipe off the planet. All of these different factions that are out there that are all arguing right now. One thing I would say to our community is that everybody needs to get prepped up for anything and everything. That does not mean sell your house and go dig a hole in your yard, but it does mean being proactive, looking at your inventory, understanding what you have. We talked to military this last week. You had master naval aviator, Top Gun pilots getting called back after retirement to go fly again. You've got military members essentially during their leave getting called back. This happened a few years ago, right before a massive movement of troops down to our border. Now you have 4 destroyers at our border. Why do you think there's 4 destroyers backing up our border missions? Why do you think we're making something called the Golden Dome, right? All of these things are happening because this is part of the plan. Everybody thinks that the president, last second, I guess negotiations aren't going to work out. This was all part of something that is a bigger plan. And, a lot of people have faith in the president that it's going to be a good thing. And I sure hope it is, right? We're talking about if they keep striking like they are, and in the next 24 to 48 hours, if they keep doing this, you're going to have a regime change. But I keep thinking back to the strategic and military alliances that Iran has been prepping for. They've been prepping for this kind of event. Russia and others have said that essentially if the U.S. gets involved, that it's going to have horrible consequences. We don't know what those consequences are. They always say this stuff. And people are so used to hearing this kind of stuff that they're just kind of numb to it. But in our community, we realize that this is something that everybody really needs to take a look around them, take a look at your family, and say, is it worth every couple weeks on your payday getting a little bit of prep, getting food, water, and at least some sort of basic plan? At the very least, you should have a plan if something goes south. The world is not, ending tomorrow, and the sky is not falling. But I will say this, if it does start to fall, if you have zero plan and you've literally been watching this war brew for 10 years, then I have to say it's hard not to think that you are ignorant and that you're being an idiot. Right now, you have a lot of folks arguing about whether we should have done it or if we didn't. It's done. It's done. That's, now it's a matter of a fact of history right now. So I hope that people share this out. I hope that people get the word out to their friends and families to have a basic plan. You don't have to panic them. Everybody's going to be panicked enough. I mean, the mainstream media is who's panicking. Channels like ours and others are trying to tell you to get prepped up, to prepare yourself so you're not afraid. Be prepared. Don't get scared, right? So again, I hope that everybody has a wonderful night, but again, 3 locations have been struck. The U.S. is absolutely involved. Even if we don't officially declare war, Iran already has talking heads saying that that's the case. And what does that mean? Iran's not going to invade us. But one thing that we can look forward to is horrible events happening in our country if they really have this thing planned. Again, if you go back to the Sarah Adams video, you can take it as propaganda. I would take it with a huge grain of salt. I would take it with a cup of salt. But I would also realize that if you are, out and about, that you need to have some basic knowledge of just how to react to situations, because you don't want to be a statistic and you don't want to be a part of a Fantastic Freddy. So I hope that everybody, has some sort of basic awareness. And also understand one of the biggest things that might happen is you will not see me on YouTube. You will not see Comcast, you will not see news, you won't see Fox News or CNN. You won't see any of this if some of the most probable events happen. If our grid goes down, I would highly recommend checking your phone, checking your car, and checking the power all at the same time. And if that happens, you've got like 24 hours to really figure it out. Some say as little as 3 hours. But at most, 72 hours before the world starts going absolutely bonkers. So I hope that this doesn't happen, but wouldn't it be on the safe side to prepare for it if it is? Again, I hope that you guys have a wonderful night. Again, I'll give you the full in-depth details tomorrow night, or actually tomorrow I'll give you more details on the actual breakdown. Everything since 7 o'clock, since the announcement by the president, has been going back and forth. There's a lot of videos coming out, but again, you don't know what's AI anymore. People are putting fake videos out already. The real video is almost unbelievable because it is so crazy. I don't know if you guys have seen this one. It almost looks like it's a beam coming out of the freaking ground, and there's like charged particles in the sky that are bright red after the explosion. It's absolutely nuts. Of course, we'll have that for you on our Monday show and updates for you on tomorrow's update. All right, you guys, I hope you have a blessed night. Good night. Share this video out far and wide. Again, thank you guys for giving us a chance. If you're new, hit the subscribe and hit the notification bell to all. If there is an emergency situation, if there's something that's changed, I will let you know. And again, we will put sources for all of this. For somebody who is brand new to us, the sleeper cells and things like that, that's claims by folks that are ex-CIA. That's using, if you actually look at the open source information that she shared, it is pretty obvious. You're looking at money shifting. You're looking at money shifting through crypto. You're looking at actual payments being done. You're looking at local newspapers from open source information from the Middle East and from other places. They've been talking about this. This is something that shouldn't be a secret. So that you can take with a grain of salt. But one thing I would realize is that this is going to be a bigger subject. You're going to hear it from mainstream media next, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's not true. It just means that they're shaping the narrative of what's about to happen. Sometimes they'll tell you about an event before it happens, and people go, oh, well, if they're telling us, it's going to be all fake. Well, not necessarily. It could be a very real event, and they're shaping how you view that event in history. If you've looked at events and you've seen them happen with your own eyes, and you've seen how the media covers, you know that they don't always tell the truth. We need to go with our gut, and my gut has always been right. And I'm not a psychic or anything, but I will say this. Even my opinion that comes from all of the research and all of the news I read every day, that's almost half the time it's wrong. My gut has been right more times than my educated brain. And I'm not saying I'm educated, I'm saying I follow this stuff 7 days a week for the last 8 years as my job. So I hope that people are paying attention. We showed you these patterns years ago. We showed you that it's like a scale. It's like the midnight clock, and we're at midnight. Midnight is not the end of the world. It's the beginning of a new one, and it's a new one that I don't think a lot of people will like. It's the last country out of those 7 countries, and now they have basically jumped in head first. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Be safe, be prepared, and mark foul.
So again, that was Marfugal News. Marfugal News. Talking about sleeper cells and being prepared. Prepare as best as you can. Don't give in to fear. Keep your faith in the Most High as always, right?
But
so now, with this event that's happened and all the evangelicals coming out, it's leading people to believe that the battle of Ezekiel 38 is getting ready to take place, right? And I'll show y'all this short as an example.
Christians, listen to this. The Bible says that this attack at the end of time will come on Israel from the north and the south, and that will be the final war, the war to end all wars that will usher in the end of time. Now here's the question. Are we entering into that war right now? In Ezekiel 38 and 39, it mentions nations, Gog and Magog. That would be like modern-day Russia. It also mentions Persia in Ezekiel 38 and 39. That corresponds to modern-day Iran. What we do know is that if Iran enters the war, that Turkey and Russia will probably go with them. Right behind them will be North Korea and China. And if all of the world powers start attacking from the north and the south, start trying to attack Israel, that could be the war to end all wars that ushers in the end of history. You may be going around now like, bro, this is heavy, man. Can I just say this? There's a lot of hope in Ezekiel 38 and 39 because we know how that battle ends. But the Bible says exactly at the moment when it looks like all hope is lost, for the descendants of Isaac, that the Lord himself, Jesus Christ, will descend. He will take the battlefield and he will win the war once and for all time.
So
Christians, listen.
This is the propaganda that we've been dealing with, because you have to know the term that they use is eschatology, and you have to know where you kind of are to realize that, again, we're not in the land. So how they could say that all this stuff is lining up to be Ezekiel 38 is beyond me. So I'm going to try to do a quick recap from last week. So we started out in Ezekiel 36, right? One of the main verses was verse 3. Therefore prophesy and say, thus saith Yahuwah, Allah, because they have made you desolate and swallowed you up on every side, that you might be a possession unto the residue of the heathen, and you are taken up in the lips of talkers, and are an infamy of the people. Now, anybody that knows anything with history knows that those people over there that came over there in 1948 are not the infamy of the people. They're not the ones that people really talk about the worst, right? Proverb or byword, right? He says, therefore, O you mountains of Israel, hear the word of Yahuwah, Allah. Thus saith Yahuwah, Allah, to the mountains and to the hills, to the rivers and to the valleys, to the desolate wastes, and to the cities that are forsaken, which became a prey and derision to the residue of the heathen that are round about. Therefore, thus saith Yahuwah Allah, surely in the fire of my jealousy have I spoken against the residue of the heathen and against all Idumea. Because it's been like a confederate, it's been like a marriage between Idumea and the residue of the heathen, which have appointed my land into their possession with the joy of all their heart, with despiteful minds to cast it off for a prey. Going back to Ezekiel 35. Ezekiel 35 talks about the great destruction that's going to happen to Edom, the Edomites, Idumea, in the last days. Now, you talk to modern day Jewish scholars or scholars in general, and they try to say that Edom or Idumea, they all passed away and died. Well, if that's the case, then that means that the book is false, and we know that that's not the case. Right? So they sold and took possession of the land. So then we went to a few different proof texts, right? So then we went to the Jewish Encyclopedia of 1925, volume 5, page 41, which states, Edom is in modern jewelry. So how in 1925 did they know that Edom would be in modern jewelry? They've done their research, right? Because Esau, he's been very cunning. He's like a chameleon. He switches faces. There's Edomites that look like me, right? There's Edomites that look like Trump. There's Edomites that look like Trump. There's Edomites that'll look like Trump. There's Edomites that look like Saudi Arabians, right? Very fickle. Very strategic alliances he's made. So then we went to Jasher 90, right? Jasher 90. And Jasher 90, we read verses 1 through 11 and 28 through 31. And it talks about, it says, I'll jump to verse 2. And Albanius, king of Kittim, went forth in that year, that is, in the 31st year of his reign, and a great force with him of the mighty men of the children of Kittim, and he went to Seir to fight against the children of Esau. So then I posed a question, right? Who was Kittim? And just to get to the point, Kittim is synonymous with Rome. Kittim is Rome. So at some point throughout the history of the Edomite Empire, right, they went to war with Kittim or Rome, right? And according to the book of Jasher, chapter 90, verses 1 through 11 and 28 through 31, they end up losing, right? So I'm going to jump down to verse 8. And the children of Kittim ruled over Edom. And Edom became under the hand of the children of Kittim and became one kingdom from that day. And from the time they could no more lift up their heads, and their kingdom became one with the children of Kittim. Right? So we're going to jump to verse 28. And it came to pass in those days that Albanius, king of Kittim, died in the 38th year of his reign. That is the 7th year of his reign over Edom. And they buried him in his place which he had built for himself, and Latinus reigned in his stead 50 years. And during his reign he brought forth an army, and he went and fought against the inhabitants of Britannia and Kernania, the children of Elisha, son of Javan, and he prevailed over them and made them tributary. He then heard that Edom had revolted from under the hand of Rome, and Latinus went to them and smote them and subdued them, and placed them under the hand of the children of Rome. And Edom became one kingdom with the children of Rome all the days. Right? And for many years there was no king in Edom, and their government was with the children of Rome and their king. Right? So the Edomites fought with Rome, they lost. They became subject to them, they became one nation. They did 2 different battles or wars against them and lost. And this is way back in the Old Testament time. So we went to Daniel 11. We're not going to reread that. We're going to keep going. We came back to Ezekiel 36. And again, I'm just going to go over the highlights. Verse 10, and I will multiply men upon you, all the house of Israel, even all of it, and the city shall be inhabited, and the waste shall be builded. Right? But that's when the people come back into the land. And I will multiply upon you man and beast, and they shall increase and bring fruit. And I will settle you after your old estates, and will do better unto you than at your beginnings. And you shall know that I am Yahuwah. Yea, I will cause men to walk upon you, even my people Israel, and they shall possess you, and you shall be their Nahala or inheritance. And thou shalt no more henceforth bereave them of men. So once we come back into the land, we will no longer be kicked out for our wickedness. Jumping down to 15. Neither will I cause men to hear in you the shame of the heathen anymore. Neither shall you bear the reproach of the people anymore. So no more proverb in my word. neither shall you cause your nations to fall anymore. So the nation of Israel and the nation of Judah will no longer fall, saith Yahuwah. This is the time where we will only know rulership with a rod of iron. Jumping to verse 19. And I scattered them, talking about the Israelites, among the heathen, and they were dispersed through the countries according to their way and according to their doings I judged them. Right? So the people were scattered throughout the world. Jumping down to verse 23. And I will sanctify my great name, which was profaned among the heathen, which you have profaned in the middle of them. And the heathen shall know that I am Yahuwah, saith Yahuwah, Eluah, when I shall be sanctified in you before their eyes, when I set you apart and make you the head and not the tail in their faces. Then will I sprinkle clean water upon you, jumping down to verse 25. And you shall be clean from all your filthiness, and from all your idols will I cleanse you. Right? So that's the real baptism that we need, because we're still a stiff-necked people. Now jumping down to verse 29. I will also save you from all your uncleanness, and I will call for the corn, and will increase it, and lay no famine upon you. So he's only going to bless us in our land, in the fruit of our hands. That really starting to sound like what? Deuteronomy 28, right? Thus saith Yahuwah, Eluah, in the day that I shall have cleansed you from all your iniquities, I will cause you to dwell in the cities, and the ways shall be builded. So once we come back into the land, he's completely cleansed us of all sins and iniquities. So that means that Tel Aviv should not be the homosexual capital of the world, if that's the case. You have to look and think about these things. You have to know the scriptures. You have to read the text. And don't be deceived by these evangelicals that are dabbling in witchcraft. Jumping down to verse 37. Thus saith Yahuwah, Eluah, I will yet for this be inquired of by the people, or of the house of Israel, to do it for them. I will increase them with men like a flock, as the holy flock, as the flock of Jerusalem in her solemn feasts. So shall the waste cities be filled with flocks of men, and they shall know that I am Yahuwah. Right? So we're going and we're kind of trying to trace where Esau Edom has gone. Make people aware that we're not looking at the Ezekiel 38 prophecy right now. That time is not yet. Right now you should be focusing on the fall of Mystery Babylon, or the daughter of Babylon. Right? And we're not going to get to that part yet today. But we went over a few different texts. One is who is Esau Edom? Right? And with any book that you read, you have to what? Chew up the meat, spit out the bones. Right? So in this, it gives you a thorough breakdown of how the quote-unquote Jewish people, again, fair use, this is for educational training purposes, rule the world. How they used the Balfour Declaration to take a land that was controlled by the Ottoman Empire from 1299 AD, right? Take it from the actual natural inhabitants in quote-unquote Palestine through the Balfour Declaration. So in this book, it talks about how they use Judaism and Zionism, right? And how it's no difference, because all of those goes back to the protocols of Zion, which a lot of it comes from the Talmud, and it's about world domination, right? Controlling the world. And it talks about how they do these things. They control the world through chaos. Order out of chaos through war. Each time is through a war. And so in order for them to get the power from the Ottoman Empire or Turkey, they had to instigate or start wars, right? And so eventually they end up going to London and getting approval from people in London for like £1.5 million, I guess, right? Because a lot of the Zionists, so when you look into the history of Zionism, you'll start seeing that the creators of it were all atheists, right? But these are the quote-unquote people of what they call God, right? So we're going to keep going. So in order for them to take the power, right, from the Ottoman Empire, they instigated the Balkan War, right? And that helped to weaken Turkey, right? And then after that, World War I, right? So they instigate, because they play both sides, World War I, because they are the bankers, right? If you control anyone's currency, you can control any country. It doesn't matter who you put in there, right? And in that, they used World War I to bring in, of course, it always has to do with the United States. You start seeing that's a common theme. You know, it was Great Britain and the United States, and then Great Britain kind of curtailed off. And then you see the United Nations, but always you see the United States, right? Through a declaration called the Balfour Declaration. So we're just going to keep going. I'm not going to read all that again. So they were able to overthrow the Ottoman Empire. And then so they used the Balkan War, World War I, and then, of course, World War II. And that's where America became center stage as the number one superpower, right? But they do these things through war. And it has to do with the Rothschild, right? Or Childs, right? But yeah, so they use the Balfour Declaration. Again, I'm not going to read all this. And then a lot of people don't realize that the Zionists actually created the UN, the United Nations. It says Palestine had been occupied and ruled by the Arabs ever since the Muslim forces conquered it in 637 AD. So that's a long time. That's like 1,400 years. The act of establishing a national home for one group of people in an occupied area such as this was an unprecedented innovation in international law. The Zionists faced the burden of convincing the world that the Jews should be given the right to occupy Palestine, since this country already had a population which had been there for centuries, or 1,300 years. It could not be simply handed over to the Jewish people. The British government made several unsuccessful attempts to quiet Arab feelings of hostility to 1,110 Zionist plans, since the Balfour Declaration guarded the rights of the Arab population. No definite conclusions could be arrived at. It says another political change was needed, such as that only war could bring, with Franklin Delano Roosevelt and Winston Churchill willing partners of the Zionists. Right? So they got them to play along, and again, that's what leads to World War II, or which really what leads to these people coming back in 1948. Well, actually, it's really them coming for the first time, not even coming back. This is, again, a picture of them too, and partnering with the Jewish people. I'm not reading all of that. Arthur Kessler, we're going to skim over his work on this again. But he talks about how they're not the people. He says, the Jewish author Kessler states that the right of the state of Israel to exist is not based on the origins of the Jewish people as being Israel, nor on the covenant of Abraham with the Most High. Rather, it is based on international law, on the United Nations decision in 1947 to partition Palestine. The Jews have not possessed the land according to biblical requirements surrounding Zion. The Israeli state was founded upon a systematic program of violence, of deceit, murder, war instigated by the Jews. And this fact alone should dismiss the idea that they are coming to Zion. We should now begin to see the modus operandi of Judaism and Zionism, and how they are not the ways of Israel, but of Edom. So even this author from this book knows, so this is the ways of Edom, right? I know that's like your favorite people to talk about, Elder. Edom. So, you know, you got upheavals, financial power to obtain objectives, so on and so forth, right? So then we went to Ezekiel 37, and just talking about Ezekiel 37, that's when the dry bones come back to life, right? The real people come back into the land. The Most High, He breathes on us. He puts us back together, and that's when He gives us a new heart, a new mind, and we're only dealing in righteousness. So again, in Tel Aviv, that should not be a homosexual capital. Like, that stuff is crazy to me. And then the way that they treat people of other nations. So how do you, if you are the people of God, y'all have, I think what's called Project Solomon, where y'all go and get I think they're called the Falasha Jews in Ethiopia, and y'all bring them back into the land, and then y'all systematically sterilize them through vaccines. Treat them like second-class citizens because they are of a darker hue, but these are the Most High's chosen people. Like, and then with all the propaganda, pray for Israel, send Israel money, and people like, oh, you know, whoever blesses Israel, God's going to bless them. Like, do research on who true Israel is. Not what the media, not what these white evangelicals try to tell us, because to be honest, it's just the continuation of white supremacy. Just another way to keep us down and always looking up to Massa when the tail is becoming the head again. But in order for that to happen, our minds have got to change. We've got to grow in maturity. So, and then this is when Israel and Judah comes back together. So we're not bickering, we're not fighting. We are ruling together in peace and in harmony and love. And it's going to be a great day. And that's truly something only the Most High can do. I mean, but that's at the end, right? So then we went to Ezekiel 38. And in Ezekiel 38 it says, and the word of Yahuwah came unto me, saying, Son of man, set your face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him, and say, Thus saith Yahuwah Eluah, Behold, I am against you, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. And I will turn you back and put hooks into your jaws, and I will bring you forth and all your army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords, Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya with them, all of them with shield and helmet. Right? So this is in Ezekiel 38. So then we jump to Genesis 9, because a lot of people don't realize who Gog is, right? And we read verses 24 through 27. And Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it upon their shoulders, and went backward and covered the nakedness of their father. And their faces were backward, and they saw not their father's nakedness. And Noah awoke from his wine, and knew what his younger son had done unto him. And he said, Cursed be Canaan. A servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren. And he said, Blessed be the Lord God of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. So Canaan is going to be Shem's servant. And God shall enlarge Japheth. We talked about how that word enlarge actually means to deceive Japheth. Enlarge or deceive Japheth. He shall dwell in the tents of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. So that's where a lot of the confusion comes in also, because he's going to be our servant and Japheth's servant, but Japheth's also going to be dwelling in the tents of Shem. That's where the deception comes in, right? So then we jump to Genesis 10. It's just trying to do a quick recap. It was a lot last week. Genesis 10, verses 1 through 5. Right? I'm going to start at verse 2. Well, no, I'll start at verse 1. Now these are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And unto them were sons born after the flood. The sons of Japheth were Gomer, Gomer and Magog, and Madai, and Javan, and Tubal, and Meshach, and Taras. And the sons of Gomer were Ashkenaz, and Riphath, and Togarmah. And the sons of Javan were Elisha, Tarshish, Rome, and Dodanim. By these were the isles of the Gentiles divided in their lands, everyone after his tongue, after their families and their nations. And when some of the people were here last week, they didn't realize that all of those Japhetic or European nations are the Gentiles, right? Go ahead. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
You know, for a long time, under this Roman Christianity mindset, they had us really, to an extent, feeling sorry for, I'm going to break it on down to Gog and Magog, which is basically infiltrated with a lot of the Edomites. Because when you sit back and look at historically what the Khazars were doing, which is Ashkenaz, that's where the name Nazi comes from in short. You know, you kind of like, okay, maybe Hitler,
Well,
the Hittite, maybe he knew kind of who these people really were. You know, that's why I'm going to go ahead and just emphasize on that.
Yeah.
Without going ahead getting flagged like that.
no, you're right, because you know they will. You know they'll definitely flag us. But again, the original Gentiles from the beginning was Europe and the European nations, quote unquote white people. So especially if you're new to this awakening, stop worshiping white people. Don't worship black people either. Stop worshiping man. Get with your creator. But that's one of the biggest things or hurdles for our people to get over, because, you know, we just look to the white man for everything. Like they're just so much above us. When the Most High, he's trying to raise us back to our former estate. And for a lot of people, it's just too hard to think of us being the chosen people. Even still, even now, like some of us have been in awakening for years, and it's hard for you can like I can tell it on certain people, like it's still hard for them to really comprehend it. You know, it's like, man, it's really us, but the curses be riddled on you, you know. But so Gog is a descendant of Japheth, not Shem, right? So this means that they are not Shemitic. So if they're Gog. So then we went to Arthur Kessler's book, The 13th Tribe, right? And so I just gone through and I've just been reading in it, right? So it talks about the time Charlemagne was crowned emperor of the West, the eastern confines of Europe between the Caucasus and the Volga were ruled by a Jewish state. A lot of people don't realize that. Now this is in the beginning of the book, a Jewish state known as the Khazar Empire. At the peak of its power, from the 7th to the 10th centuries AD, it played a significant part in shaping the destinies of medieval and consequently of modern Europe. The Byzantine emperor and historian Constantine, however you say that name, was well aware of this when he recorded in his treatise on court protocol, the letters addressed to the Pope, right? So we're just going to keep going. Now, it says, the country of the Khazars, a people of Turkish stock. So they already know that they're not Israelites. Whoever these people are, they're of Turkish stock, right? So we'll keep going. It says, but equally or even more important, both of them on the point of view of the Byzantine diplomacy and of European history, is the fact that the Khazar armies effectively blocked the Arab avalanche in its most devastating early stages, and thus preventing the Muslim conquest of Eastern Europe. Because a lot of people didn't know that either. They were one of the main reasons why Islam really didn't completely take over the world. Like it could have if it wasn't for them. Because that's the thing about these Khazars. They were a warrior race of people. Always wanted to keep people in war, want to take everything from everybody. Even when we're reading from the book of Jasher, like the Khazars had taken over like the Babylonian Empire once or twice. You know, you don't even hear about them in history. It's really crazy. So, and like, especially these people that are Khazars now, they're known as the name stealers, right? That's what the name stealers. So like the ancient Chinese people would call them the literal name stealers. So they would, like, you would come, they would meet you, and then they'd learn everything about you, feed you, kill you, and then if you were going someplace to do some business, they would act as if they were you to fulfill your business, and then they would just keep doing that over and over. So again, this is people that were called the name stealers. They were synonymous with that. So do I want to read that? No, not that one. So it says the wars of the Arabs and the Khazars, which lasted more than 100 years. So they fought the Arabs for over 100 years. Again, people don't realize that. And they kept the Islam from completely controlling the world, right? So then we go to up to AD 740. It says the king, his court, and military ruling class embraced the Jewish faith. So that's when they became Jewish in AD 740, right? So we see that. And that's the most important. It says, our investigations cannot go into the problems pertaining to the history of ideas, but we must call the reader's attention to the matter of the Khazar kingdom's state religion. It was the Jewish faith which became the official religion of the ruling strata of society. Needless to say, the acceptance of the Jewish faith as the state religion of an ethnically non-Jewish people could be the subject of interesting speculation. So even back then in AD 740, they knew they wasn't the people. Because, again, Arthur Kessler, he's this Jewish guy that did the research of his own people to try to find out where they came from, who they were. Right? It says, what is in dispute is the fate of the Jewish Khazars after the destruction of their empire. In the 12th or 13th century, on this problem, the sources are scant, but various late medieval Khazar settlements are mentioned in Crimea, sound like Russia, in the Ukraine, in Hungary, Poland, and Lithuania. The general picture that emerges from the fragmentary pieces of information is that of a migration of Khazar tribes and communities into those regions of Eastern Europe, mainly Russia and Poland, where, at the dawn of the modern age, the greatest concentrations of Jews were found. So Khazars moved there, and then that's the biggest group of Jews, and we know that they became Jewish in AD 740, right? Coincidence. Don't believe in coincidences. Okay, so the far-reaching implications of this hypothesis may explain the great caution exercised by historians in approaching this subject, because they knew it, but they didn't want to get in trouble because they're the bankers. They run everything. If they do not, avoid it altogether. Thus, in 1973 edition of the Encyclopedia Judaica, the article Khazars is signed by Dunlop, but there is a separate section dealing with Khazar Jews after the fall of the kingdom. Why would you do that? They're the same people. Signed by the editors and written with the obvious intent to avoid upsetting the believers in the dogma of the chosen race, because they got the world believing that that's them. It says the Turkish-speaking Karaites is fundamentalist Jewish sect, or a fundamentalist Jewish sect of the Crimea, Poland, and elsewhere have affirmed a connection with the Khazars, which is perhaps confirmed by evidence from folklore and anthropology, as well as language. There seems to be a considerable amount of evidence attesting to the continued presence in Europe of descendants of the Khazars. So they knew it, right? It says, this was the funniest part of it, how important in quantitative terms is that presence of the Caucasian sons of Japheth in the tents of Shem. They know, again, this is a Jewish guy putting this stuff in there. They know that they are not the people, right? But the world believes a lie. They're still under this bewitchment. One of the most radical propounders of the hypothesis concerning the Khazar origins of Jewry is the professor of medieval Jewish history at Tel Aviv University, A.N. Polyak. His book, Khazaria, I'm still trying to get it, was published in 1944 in Tel Aviv and a second edition in 1951. In his introduction, he writes that the facts demand a new approach both to the problem of the relation between Khazar Jewry and other Jewish communities and to the question of how far we can go in regarding this Khazar Jewry as the nucleus of the large Jewish settlement in Eastern Europe. The descendants of this settlement, those who stayed where they were, those who immigrated to the United States and to other countries, and those who went to Israel constitute now the large majority of Jewry. So, I mean, you get the point. Mm-hmm. They know that those people are not the people, but they're the largest bunch of quote-unquote Jewry when we're allegedly scattered everywhere. So there's no way. And what about the other tribes? Why is it only Jewry, right? So again, that was from Arthur Kessler's book. I'm trying to get to the letter real quick. Where's the letter? So it says some Persian and Arab, still in the same book, the 13th tribe, and Arab chronicles provide an attractive combination of legend and gossip. They may start with the creation and end with stop-pressed tidbits. Thus, Yaqubi, a 9th century Arab historian, traces the origin of the Khazars back to Japheth, the third son of Noah. Right? One of the earliest factual references to the Khazars occurs in a Syriac chronicle by Zechariah Rator, dating from the middle of the 6th century. It mentions the Khazars in a list of people who inhabit the region of the Caucasus. Other sources indicate that they were already much in evidence a century earlier and intimately connected with the Huns. In AD 448, the Byzantine Emperor Theodosius II sent an embassy to Attila, which included a famed rhetorician by name Priscus, right? So basically, he was trying to get the Khazars to do something for him, and it didn't work out from that account. But we're going to keep going. Oh, now this is the letter. And I'm going to try to get to the meat of it. It says, Khazars during most of this period seem to be happily occupied with raiding rich trans-Caucasian regions of Georgia and Armenia and collecting precious plunder. During the second half of the 6th century, they became the dominant force among the tribes north of the Caucasus. A number of these tribes, the Sabirs, the Saragurs, the Samandars, the Balanjars, are from this day onward no longer mentioned by name in the sources. They have been subdued or absorbed by the Khazars. Now, Hasdai, right? His letter. He says, Hasdai then proceeds to explain how he first heard about the existence of the Jewish kingdom from the merchants of Khorasan. Then in more detail from the Byzantine envoys, and he reports what these envoys told him. I questioned them, the Byzantines, about it, and they replied that it was true, and that the name of the kingdom is Al-Khazar. Between Constantinople and this country there is a journey of 15 days by sea, but they said by land there are many other people between us and them. The name of the building of the ruling king is Joseph. Ships come to us from their land, bringing fish, furs, and all sorts of merchandise. They are in alliance with us and honored by us. We exchange embassies and gifts. They are powerful and have a fortress for their outposts and troops, which go out on forays from time to time. I feel the urge to know the truth, whether there is really a place on this earth where harassed Israel can rule itself, where it is subject to nobody. Now, this was an actual Hebrew. This guy writing this letter has that. If I were to know that this is indeed the case, I would not hesitate to forsake all honors, to resign my high office, to abandon my family, and to travel over mountains and plains, over land and water, until I arrived at the place where my master, the Jewish king, rules. And I also have one more request, to be informed whether you have any knowledge of the possible date of the final miracle, the coming of Mashiach, which, wandering from country to country, we are awaiting, dishonored and humiliated in our dispersion. We have to listen in silence to those who say, every nation has its own land, and you alone possess not even a shadow of a country on this earth. Just like to this day. Just like to this day. So I'm going to skip this one and go to the next one. It says, Joseph then proceeds to provide a genealogy. So this is the king of the Khazars, of his people. Through a fierce Jewish nationalist, or though a fierce Jewish nationalist, proud of wielding the scepter of Judah, he cannot and does not claim for them Semitic descent. He traces their ancestry not to Shem, but to Noah's third son, Japheth, or more precisely to Japheth's grandson, Togarmah, the ancestors of all Turkish tribes, Togarmah. We have found in the family registers of our fathers, Joseph asserts boldly that Togarmah had 10 sons, and the names of their offspring are as follows: Yagar, Dersu, Avars, Huns, Basili, Tarnakai, Khazars, the 7th, Zagora, Bulgars, Sabir. We are the sons of Khazar, the 7th. So even back then, they knew that they were sons of Japheth, right? They didn't claim anything else. The evidence quoted in the previous pages indicates that, contrary to the traditional view held by 19th century historians, the Khazars, after their defeat by the Russians, because the Russians always end up fighting them, lost their empire but retained their independence within narrower frontiers and their Judaic faith well into the 13th century. They even seem to have reverted to some extent to their erstwhile predatory habits. Barrett comments. In general, the reduced Khazar kingdom persevered. It waged a more or less effective defense against all foes until the middle of the 13th century, when it fell victim to the great Mongol invasion set in motion by Genghis Khan. Even then, it resisted stubbornly until the surrender of all its neighbors. Its population was largely absorbed by the Golden Horde, which had established the center of its empire in Khazar territory. So another reason why all that stuff's going on in Ukraine is they're trying to get their land back, because the Ashkenazi Khazar Jews are trying to get, Crimea and all that stuff back, because that was their ancestral homeland. Go ahead.
And you see, reading that, how all this here is tying in even during World War II and after, because when you had that, I don't want to call it the Great Wall, but want to talk about that wall that was tore down and broke down with communism between East Germany and West Germany. That's basically because you had Russia, and Germany. There was they've been feuding. These folks have been feuding for a long time. But the thing that's also kind of interesting, a lot of people don't realize that, because when you look at some old actual description of, I guess, Genghis Khan, that dude was a highly melanated dude.
Yep.
I mean, he just didn't
very melanated.
He didn't have nappy hair like the house of Yahudah, the true house, or the Israelites, but he was a highly melanated dude. So it kind of makes you wonder now, the Noah's 3 sons, everybody started out with a lot of melanin, but something happened along the way where certain people got leprosy because of certain things that they did.
Because it don't make sense. Because to be honest, white people they had to come from the Asian people. That's the closest variant. And when you really think about it, like their hair is almost the same, their skin is eerily similar to me, but something like you said happened to where they have leprosy completely through their body. So because they were mixing with the people where you don't get a lineage from, like, because sometimes I'll go back and I'll just be like, man, where did Seir the Horite come from? Because like you look in the book and it's like it's not in there. I'm like okay, he's a Horite, but where do they come from? It just tells you Horite just means cave dweller. So mixing in with them. Oh, go ahead.
But the thing about it, when you start really, as we dig deeper in our history and our different books, we see there's a whole lot of foul things going on in those caves. A lot of not incest, but bestiality.
A little bit of everything, yeah.
A lot of that going on.
It was probably incest too. Look, you talk about some savage people, man. Yeah, I sometimes just sit back like, man, I understand, white people, the Caucasian sons of Japheth, but how do you get that big of a variant between them? Because the Asian people are also Japheth too. So, like, how, I don't know. I just sit back and I just can't.
Warring and going into villages and destroying villages, but they were taking the wives.
Yep.
And mixing.
Yeah, and whitening up. Yeah, I mean.
The medieval period was.
Oh, yeah, because, like, y'all know eventually we're going to have to go over that. Like, we're going to have to take our time and go through all of that. The medieval period and. Which is really the part of the start of the tribulation. But, yeah, but like you said, Genghis Khan, he was a very melanated man, because I've looked into him some years ago, though. It says, even then it resisted stubbornly. Okay, Golden Horde. So then it says, but before and after the Mongol upheaval, the Khazars sent many offshoots into the Slavonic lands, helping ultimately to build up the great Jewish centers of Eastern Europe. Here and then, we have the cradle of the numerically strongest and culturally dominant part of modern Jewry. The offshoots to which Baron refers were indeed branches out long before the destruction of the Khazar state by the Mongols as the ancient Hebrew nation, which they're not even Hebrew. So, well, not all of them, because like I've seen some different research to where when they started looking at the genetic makeup, this is why they cannot take a DNA test, because it's not consistent. So you'll see some of them with the J marker, those are the ones that come from the Caucasus, right? And then you'll start seeing some E1B1B. And we are, for the most part, E1B1A. But a lot of them don't look like us, they look like them. Esau, right? He mixes in, with the different peoples, and he's just a chameleon. So then it says, but at the same time, their exclusive religion fostered a tendency to keep to themselves and stick together, to establish their own communities within their own places, yada, yada, yada. It says, this rare combination of wanderlust and ghetto mentality, reinforced by messianic hopes and chosen race pride, both ancient Israelites and medieval Khazars shared, even though the latter traced their descent not to Shem, but to Japheth. So he keeps reiterating that these people claiming to be the people is not the people. And again, he's Jewish, right? So now we're going to go over a book that we didn't go over last time. So this time we're going over this book. Parts of it. It's called The Invention of the Jewish People by Shlomo Sand. Now, I've had this for a long time, but like I said, I have more time now, so I've kind of been delving more into reading, which I'm grateful for. Edgar, you mind reading this? Just only the highlighted portions?
Some of the Berbers follow the Jewish religion, which they received from their powerful Israelite neighbors of Syria. Among the Jewish Berbers were inhabitants of Oris, the tribe of Kahina, who were killed by Arabs in their early conquest. Ibn Khaldun, History of the Berbers, 1396. It is even possible that my ancestry might not move in the direction of ancient Israel at all.
So Shlomo's saying he's also a Jewish man doing his own research on his own heritage. Okay.
After 965, the Khazars were though as an organized power, but Judaism may have remained, and it may well be that many East European Jews are descended from Khazars and the people they ruled. I may be one of them. Who knows? And who cares?
So look, now this was a quote from this Jewish guy.
Asimov, I believe.
Right, and he put that, Shlomo saying put that quote in his book, so we're going to keep going. So then I'm going to read this part. Jewish Khagans. A strange empire rises in the east. In the middle of the 10th century, the Sephardic Golden Age, Hasdai, remember we talked about Hasdai's letter earlier, Hasdai ibn Saprut, a physician and important statesman in the court of the Caliph of Cordoba, Abd-ar-Rahman III, wrote a letter to the king of the Khazars, Joseph ben Aran. Rumors about a great Jewish empire bordering on Eastern Europe had reached the Jewish elites at the continent's western end and aroused intense curiosity. Was there at long last a Jewish kingdom that was not subordinate to Muslim or Christian powers? The letter opens with a poem of praise for the king, with an acrostic composed by Menahem ben Saruk, Hasdai's secretary and leading Hebrew poet in the Iberian Peninsula. Again, this was a real Hebrew, right? Followed by the writer's introduction of himself, inter alia, of course, as a descendant of the exiles from Jerusalem, and a description of the kingdom in which he lives. Then he comes to the point. Merchants have told me that there is a kingdom of Jews called Al-Khazar, and I did not believe it, because I thought they said this to please and approach me. I was puzzled about it until emissaries arrived from Constantinople with a gift from their king to our king. And I asked them about it. They assured me that this was the truth, that the kingdom is called Al-Khazar. And between Al-Constantinople and their country there, if this will turn, was a journey of 15 days, is what we read before, by sea. But on land there are many nations between us, and the name of its king is Joseph. And I, when I heard this, was filled with force, and my hands grew strong, and my hope intensified, and I bowed and made obeisance to the Lord of heaven. And I searched for a faithful emissary to send to your land to find out the truth and to greet my Lord, the king, and his servants, our brothers. But it was difficult to do, for the distance is very great. Hasdai goes on to describe in detail all the difficulties entailed in dispatching the letter, and finally asks direct questions. Of what tribe is the king? What is the system of the monarchy? Is it passed from father to son? Why is he asking, is it passed from father to son?
The seed line always comes from the father. That's
right. But the Jewish people today, where does it come from?
The mother.
It only counts if your mother's Jewish. That's not the right thing. So he's asking these questions, right?
Mm-hmm.
So monarchy, is it passed from father to son, as was done by the ancestors in the Torah? How big is the kingdom? Who are its enemies? And over whom does it rule? Does war take precedence over the Sabbath? What is the country's climate? And so forth. Hasdai's curiosity was limitless, for which he apologized courteously. It is not known how long it took before the Khazar king's reply arrived, but in the extant letter, King Joseph answered Hasdai's questions as best he could. He described his origin and the boundaries of his kingdom. So in this account, I only highlighted a small part because he kind of gets to the point. You have asked of what nation and family and tribe we are. Know you that we are the sons of Japheth and of his son Togarmah. So go ahead.
Check this out. This is kind of interesting fact, and this is kind of current. A lot of these here so-called
camps,
all these white Cherokees.
Oh, the $5 variety, yeah.
They actually they believe the same thing as what these Jewish people think, as far as
what do you mean?
The seed line coming from the
mother. Oh yeah. No, like there's a lot, because like, to be honest, there weren't a lot of tribes or nations that actually followed the seed lines like the Hebrews did. A lot of them did go from mother to mother. A lot of the native tribes did it that way.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Now I didn't know that until about last year, the year before. I think my wife had to take a class in Native Studies or something like that, and so she was telling me about something. I'm like, I didn't know that. But the Hebraic natives did it the normal way, that's in the book. But every tribe wasn't, especially every tribe over here wasn't an Israelite tribe. But we had African tribes here, we had Israelite tribes here, there were some Caucasian tribes here also. There were a lot of different tribes that were even here in the Americas prior to Christopher Columbus, or whatever you want to call his name. So we get all that. So two different authors come to the same conclusion that the Jewish people are not the people, and all these authors were Jewish people, right? So does what happened in 1948, does it fulfill the prophecies in Deuteronomy 28?
No.
Just to be sure. So in Deuteronomy 28, right, I'm going to read verse 1. And it shall come to pass that if you shall hearken diligently unto the voice of Yahuwah thy God, to observe and to do all his commandments, which I command you this day, that Yahuwah your God will set you on high above all nations of the earth. Jumping down to verse 15. But it shall come to pass, if you will not hearken unto the voice of Yahuwah your power, to observe and to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command you this day, that all these curses shall come upon you and overtake you. Yahuwah shall cause you to be smitten before your enemies. You shall go out one way against them and flee 7 ways before them, and shall be removed into where? All the kingdoms of the earth, not just Europe. Because they come from Poland, Russia, Lithuania, Ukraine, all of those places, right? But it says all kingdoms of the earth. So then we're going to jump down. Verse 32. Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in your hand. Did that happen to them? Were their kids sold?
Nope.
Given to another people?
No, there's only one folk that happened to.
I'm just saying, there's only one prophecy that really, or one people that really fit that. The fruit of your land and all your labors. Actually, Jamal, can you read this?
Yeah. What, 32?
Yeah, 33. Start at 33.
What a mic get?
Elder Mike got the mic.
You said 32 and down.
33.
All right. The fruit of thy land and all thy labors shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up, and thou shalt be only oppressed and crushed away.
So I got a question. What happened to them in the Holocaust? Did they know the Germans?
No, they ain't no Germans.
They didn't know the Germans?
You talking about the Russians and the Germans?
I'm talking about the Jewish people.
Oh, they all live together, yeah.
They're called Ashkenaz. Ashkenaz literally means German.
Yeah, I'm sure.
They're the German Jews.
I'm thinking the Germans.
Right? So we know that's not fitting no type of prophecy. Right? Okay, keep going.
Yeah, I was thinking when Germany attacked Russia. I wasn't thinking about the people in the population. All right.
No, you're
The
good.
Most High shall bring thee and thy king, which thou shalt set over thee, unto a nation which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, and there shalt thou serve other gods, wood and stone.
We know that didn't happen to them then, so keep going.
Wow.
Huh?
Loud. And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations, whither the Most High shall lead thee.
And we know that's us, not them. Keep going. Verse 41.
Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity.
Did their children go into captivity?
Slavery all over again.
That's what I'm saying. That didn't happen to them.
Nah.
It ain't happened to them.
Can you imagine having your kid and get taken from you? You know, like, come on.
I'm probably
you
gonna
never
have
see
to.
them again?
I'm probably gonna have to die.
Man, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
yeah. You said never see him again.
Never
Yeah,
see
you
them.
probably gonna
Like,
have to kill
sometimes
me.
they never see them again.
Yeah, you
Man.
probably have to kill me. Like I mean,
Yeah. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Most High shall send against thee in hunger, and in thirst, and in nakedness, and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck, until he have destroyed thee. We had yokes on, they had yokes on our necks, like chains and all that.
yeah, yeah. I mean, we literally had that, and then like that's the mystery of that Holocaust, because the Nazis were coming against the Ashkenazi.
Yeah.
It's really a lot of them the same people.
But see, people don't realize Hitler said the reason why he did that because he wanted to kill them fake Jews. They was taking over the world.
Right.
That's why he was going after mostly Jews.
Because like people don't remember. I think he just won. He didn't win a Nobel Peace Prize, did he? No, he won a He won something on time. He had won something, something monumental, and the world was loving him. And then all of a sudden, drop of a dime, he's public enemy number one.
Because he said the Negro is God's crown jewel.
He did.
And the Jewish people, he trying to wipe them out because they are the fake Jews. And they taking over the whole world.
Yeah, I mean,
Literally.
At the end, he started getting kind of crazy, but yeah.
Well,
He was on his own sauce a little bit.
yeah. Well, he was high too though.
Of course, they was all high.
He was on concoction of drugs.
Yeah, and then they was
But-
consorting with demons and all that stuff.
But he
Yeah.
still spoke some truth talking about them fake Jews though.
Oh, huh?
Yeah.
That's 100. Yeah,
Where was I at?
you're on 49.
All right. The Most High shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle fly. A nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand.
Now we know the American symbol, right? The eagle,
Yeah.
the literal eagle, right?
Mhm.
Didn't understand this language. Okay, keep going.
A nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of the old, nor show favor to the young. And the Most High shall scatter thee among all people.
So scatter who?
Scatter
The
thee.
only people that have
Yeah.
been scattered among all
Scatter
people.
thee.
Us.
Yeah. Amongst all people.
Man,
From the one end of the earth even unto the other. And there thou shalt
serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone.
Catholicism, Christianity, right? Keep going. The Kabbalah stone, keep going.
And the Most High shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships.
Egypt means bondage, right?
Yeah, this time it's America though. By the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwoman, and no man shall buy you.
So we know at no point were they sold into bondage in 1940 or whenever that stuff happened,
Yeah,
right?
no.
During the Holocaust. At no point.
No.
No point. And this is like, sometimes I sit back and think like, how strong is this witchcraft? Like, I understand they control the media, but the people, once you know basic stuff, have to get scattered to every nation under heaven if they're not obedient to the Most High, proverb and byword, children sold into slavery, this, and that. How can you not, how can, especially America, how can you not see that it's us? Go ahead.
They don't want to.
Yeah, give the mic to her. Oh, bad.
Well, it's TV, and they don't want to.
They definitely don't want to.
I'm gonna sum it up real quick. the reason why, up until this great awakening, the dry bones awakening us, but all prior is because these Christian cemeteries that most of our people have been caught up in. Part of the regulation, the rules of the game is for us to set you up in the church that you better not teach this.
No.
Think about it.
No type of history.
Those of us here in the tabernacle. How many times have you heard any of these preachers, man, teach Deuteronomy? They might teach, be there for 3 hours. 2.5 hours listening to music, and then the half hour listening to some rhetoric about
Off of one verse,
or something.
off of one or two verses.
Yeah, I don't know how to be blessed. God wants everybody rich, especially growing up in the culture. We ain't never seen nothing like
Yeah,
that.
church. Yeah, you ain't lying.
Well, you gotta remember the slave Bible
Mhm.
was casted out there to keep them groomed to that. So they're stuck in that tradition and they
Yep.
don't want to come out of the tradition
Yeah.
and read outside of that because they're so stuck instead
Yeah.
of reading it for themselves.
Yeah.
This right here is what literally awoke in my spirit because I read this and I automatically thought of our people, like,
Yeah.
wait a minute. And so it didn't sit right with me. So then I wanted to read further.
Yeah.
But so many of these leaders
They will fight
in these
you about
churches.
it.
Oh, yeah.
They will fight you or counsel you about it.
Because
Yeah.
they don't want to lose membership.
Yeah.
They're going to lose money in them
they're
coffers.
stuck in that traditional, oh, well, my granddaddy taught or my pastor taught this and we're going to keep it on this. And I'm like, and this is where I had a problem with, if you are a leader in a church and you are teaching
Yeah.
the scripture correctly,
Yeah.
there is no way that my mind, I'm not a pastor, I'm not a teacher, I was just reading because I wanted to get closer to the Most High.
Yeah.
Right.
When I read this scripture, there was no way that you can convince me otherwise that we were not the people.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So how do they sit there and say, oh, we're going to read it, or if they're reading it or not? You cannot tell me that they don't know. They don't want to know because they don't want the backlash of their church people coming after them. It's all fear. So you're still they're still putting man before the word of God.
Facts.
That's pretty much it.
Even if they don't want to say that's our people, who else could it have been?
Right.
Who
There's
else?
no one.
Because, like, every time when, as a nation, we become really disobedient, we go into captivity.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And if they just sit down and listen to themselves and listen to the word and just put everything with the word and line it up with what they told us to do, why didn't they want us to read? They
So
didn't
we
want us to
wouldn't
read
learn.
and they didn't want us to read certain
couldn't
things out of
learn.
the Bible because that was our history. That is our book.
Because they didn't want us to learn.
And now everybody's turned their backs on it.
Yeah, and it's so crazy. So, and then we're going to extra biblical sources, like
Yeah.
or texts outside, where the people that the world believes are the people, like, yeah, it ain't us. We sons of Japheth, either it's Togarmah or, the seventh son of Togarmah, whatever, Khazar. It's crazy how these two different authors can come, actually 3 different authors can come to that conclusion.
Yeah.
Right? That's wild, right?
It's comfortable for them.
Our
Yeah.
folks have made it a tradition just to do what they used to do back in the day, like
Yeah.
they want to change.
Mm-hmm.
It all stems from the oppressor, like.
Yeah. And as we keep getting further along, less of the oppressor's boot is on us, or at least on our minds. So we're starting to break free with each passing generation, as long as we keep doing what we're supposed to do.
Why do you
Right?
think the word woke is thrown up in political standing?
Oh yeah, they hate it, but they hate the word now.
That is so funny to me, and I'm like, y'all don't see what's happening?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
They had to try to corrupt the awakening. They had to. Oh no, that's woke. Like now, like you listen to all these comments, and they talk down about being woke when the connotations that they put on it now, that is not what we meant.
right.
It got like, I don't know how they curtailed that thing. I'm
Of
like,
course they don't do that. They got to.
you know your enemy.
Yeah.
Because people keep, they talk about, the Great Tribulation is coming and this and that, and then they don't realize we were born in the Great Tribulation.
Yeah.
Our people were. That we can't talk about nobody else.
Right.
But our people were literally born in the Great Tribulation. It's not something that's coming. It's something that we've been living through, right? Leviticus talked about tribulations, right? So then, just to show you, so Luke 21, we're going to start at verse 8, if you don't mind.
And he said,
This is Mashiach.
and he said, take heed that ye be not deceived, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and the time draweth near. Go you not therefore after them.
Don't fall for it.
Don't be tricked. For when you shall hear of wars and commotions, be not terrified. For these things must first come to pass. By the end is not by and by.
Right. So it's not yet. We know that there's sleeper cells and eventually they're going to get activated.
Well, Iran and Israel
Yeah.
still kind of into it. They still talking.
That's what I'm talking about, the sleeper. Look, Iran, Russia, and China got sleeper cells over here, if not more.
Yeah.
Like probably Iraqi. Like we done bombed 6 different Middle Eastern countries for no doggone reason.
Yeah.
Trump gonna say y'all got 14 days to do this, and then all of a sudden I'm gonna bomb y'all.
In 2 days.
Yeah, in 2 days.
Yeah.
Haha, gotcha.
Yeah.
America got it coming, bro. And people are trying to justify, like, yeah, that's my president, and yeah, I'm with him. Like, look what he's doing. Pray for Israel. I'm like, Israel's right here,
Exactly.
and y'all have no idea.
Right.
And he don't realize what he did. It ignited Iran even more. They are so angry.
And I honestly believe it's gonna be like a thief in the night. Just one day, maybe they'll start a full-fledged war, and we send troops over there, and then our back door gonna be wide open. Because this whole Golden Dome that Trump got money for, I believe that they've already, whenever they tell us, I believe they already have it, but they're just trying to strengthen it.
Yeah.
But what's the Golden Dome going to do when they have sleeper cells that know where our nuclear locations are, and they just set them off?
Yeah. Turn them off. Turn them off where they can't work.
No. So,
He's about to set off bullets.
yeah, like some of them are probably working in the nuclear facilities just waiting.
Oh, yeah.
And then EMPs, like, man, dude, with the advent of AI, you can take over anything, including nuclear facilities, bro.
All you gotta do is hack it.
I'm telling you, it's a matter of time before this stuff pop off.
Even in the military, they do.
That would be crazy.
Facts.
That would be crazy.
Facts.
Our own nukes to bomb us in American state. That would be crazy.
Because, like, they're going to have to get EMPs in here first.
Yeah.
But, again, that's why I would not want to live in one of the large major cities or hubs
Yeah.
with millions of people. Y'all going to be targets.
Yeah.
I don't want no parts of none of that.
Yeah.
Especially where these coastal states where you have
Yep.
chemical companies
Right.
and oil refineries.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, y'all remember the articles and the videos that CNN kept saying, oh, yeah, the Chinese, they're buying up all these lands, right by nuclear facilities and farms and stuff like.
Yeah.
What?
That was, that was back when Hillary was running for president.
I mean, and they've just been doing that this whole time. Just,
Right.
like, they're just waiting.
Because we owe them so much money, so they can get in that land, so we can't pay everything.
And that's
back.
mainly in California, but I'm just saying they have been buying land next to nuclear facilities
Yeah.
for a reason.
Right.
For a reason. So it's coming. We just got to stay patient. Just it's coming, and our minds have got to be ready because once we leave here, it's going to be a whole different type of lifestyle.
For sure.
We're not going to have all of the amenities and luxuries that we have here
It'd be like being in the military in the field all over again.
all over again,
Yep.
Yeah.
starting over.
That's why we need to be preparing our families for that, even if it's just like going camping without
Yep.
those necessities, or just going in the yard and be like, hey, pitch a tent. We're not
Yeah,
doing
hey,
that.
let's, yeah.
Not today, y'all learn how to kill an animal and
Oh, well, we didn't
all
kill
that.
chickens and all that. All I got to do is catch a
But some
deer.
people
Yeah.
will get sick of it, they ain't used to it.
Oh, no.
But if you wanna eat, you better get with the program.
No, we're going to do what we got to do. We're going to tribe up. That's what we're going to do.
Under a state of starvation, they'll learn.
Yeah, for sure.
Go over to the Taylors and catch me some fish real quick. Like, we'll have this nice little fish fry, you know. Keep going though, bro. Let's get through this.
Then said he unto them, nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and great earthquakes shall be in divers places, and famines, and pestilences, and fearful sights, and great signs shall there be from heaven. But before all these, they shall lay their hands on you,
Wait, on who?
on you,
The people.
yeah,
Not Christians per se.
not Judaism.
No. Us.
Yeah.
Right? Keep going.
And persecute you, delivering you up to the synagogues and into prisons, wow, being brought before kings and rulers for my name's
So
sake.
before any great tribulation comes, it's on us first. That's what I'm saying. We've been living through this thing.
Yeah. And it shall turn to you for a testimony. Settle it therefore in your hearts, not to mediate.
Meditate.
Not to meditate before what ye shall answer. For I will give you a mouth and wisdom, which all your adversaries shall not be able to gainsay nor resist. And ye shall be betrayed both by parents and brethren and kinsfolks and friends, and some of you shall they cause to be put to death.
Look what COVID did to families.
Right.
Lord. And ye shall be hated of all men for my name's sake.
Because his name is in us, right?
Now, that
There's a
time-
reason why I read this account. Go ahead, Elder, my bad.
That time right there when you just talk about deliver it up,
Mm-hmm.
his namesake, and he'll put it in our mouth and our heart. This is which is going to be all over again.
Yep.
The Pentecost, the true Pentecost, unspoken again as it was back, thousands of years ago. Where they can't resist, and that's when it's going to be said that the whole world is going to say that we are the people then, because
Yeah, oh yeah,
they won't
it's gonna be undeniable.
And then they still ain't going to repent. They're going to want to get even meaner at it.
Oh yeah, but they gonna say we inherited the lies, but they still gonna be like, oh, we gotta get them.
Yeah.
Like, try us if you
How
want
we gonna
to.
kill them all. Yeah.
Say what?
How we gonna kill them all.
Yeah, man, try them if you want to.
Yeah.
Keep going.
But there shall not an hair of your head perish, and your patience possess ye your souls.
Be patient.
And when ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh.
Right. Now that part happened in 70 AD, right? Keep going.
Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out, and let not them that are in the countries enter thereinto.
And I'm not saying that they're not gonna try to have a fake version of it happen to make people really believe that it's them when it's not. Their own mouths, their own people saying that we're not the ones.
Yeah.
There's a reason why I wanted to read this account of this, right? And you're about to see why. Keep going.
For these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. But woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck. In those days, for there shall be great distress in the land, and wrath upon this people.
Upon who?
This people. These
Right,
people,
not
us.
Christians,
Yeah.
not the world, not a lot. No, on us.
Yeah.
Man.
And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations.
That's Deuteronomy 28. Oh, go ahead, Elder.
You know what you said there, Morey, that you wouldn't be surprised that this doesn't happen again. They try to make you think.
Yeah.
See, I have a feeling, and I don't know, but it sure seems like it could line up that way, what you just said. Only difference is, when that happens, and they're encompassed by the armies and everything, as a mirror image that happened to the true house, Israelite house. Only this time, there won't be any of them spared like us. It's
Yeah,
gonna
no.
be- It's gonna be.
And think about the chaos that would ensue from the world in Christendom.
Yeah.
If they just got obliterated, destroyed
Lord,
out.
the whole world.
Oh no, the whole thing was a lot, because that was the Massini letter, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I
Have
remember
everybody
that.
spiritually, mentally, and emotionally exhausted.
Yeah.
So they can bring in
So
the
you
true
can
light
trick
of
'em.
Lucifer.
Yeah, so you
Right?
can trick 'em. Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, it's
It
coming.
can happen.
Yeah, it can happen.
False flags, what they gonna call it.
100%.
Yeah. Well, let me finish reading it. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles, until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled.
So we're coming to the end of that time of the Gentiles. So this whole time, since Mashiach died and our leadership was kicked out in 70 AD, right? It's been the time of the Gentiles. Even before that, technically it was in the time of the Gentiles, because we were under Roman occupation. That time's coming to an end. So then, because I talked about how 1948 didn't fulfill the prophecies of Deuteronomy 28. So this is going back to, this is either the invention of the Jewish people, is what I want to say, yeah. So it says, the people exiled in 70 AD or CE. It must first of all be emphasized that the Romans never deported entire peoples, right? So he talks about getting led away captive into all nations. Mashiach said that.
Yeah.
So the Romans never deported entire peoples. We might add, neither did the Assyrians and Babylonians. So those are the other major captivities.
Yeah.
So how could Deuteronomy 28 really be fulfilled then? It's got to be a different captivity. Right? So it must first of all be emphasized that the Romans never deported entire peoples. We might add that neither did the Assyrians and Romans Babylonians move entire populations from the countries they conquered. It did not pay to uproot the people of the land, the cultivators of produce, the taxpayers.
Of course not.
But even the efficient policy of deportation practiced by the Assyrian and later the Babylonian Empire, in which whole sections of local administrative and cultural elites were deported, was not followed by the Roman Empire. Here and there in the Western Mediterranean countries, it says local farming communities were displaced to make room for the settling of Roman soldiers, but this exceptional policy was not applied in the Near East. Roman rulers could be utterly ruthless in suppressing rebellious subject populations. They executed fighters, took captives and sold them into slavery, and some exiled kings and princes. But they definitely did not deport whole populations in the countries they conquered in the East.
Right.
Nor did they have the means to do so. None of the trucks, trains, or great ships available in the modern world. So if you take away the Babylonian, the Assyrian, the Roman captivity, that only leaves the transatlantic slave trade. That's literally the only one it could be. I'm just trying to show y'all the people. It's y'all. It ain't them. Flavius Josephus, the historian of the Zealot revolt in the year 66 CE, is almost the only source for this exile. Aside from archaeological findings dating to that time, his book, Wars of the Jews, describes the tragic outcome of that period's conflict. The devastation did not spread throughout the kingdom of Judea. But affected mainly Jerusalem and a number of fortified cities. Josephus estimated that 1.1 million people died in the siege of Jerusalem, and the great massacre that followed, that 97,000 were taken captive, and that a few thousand more were killed in other cities. But again, they weren't mass deporting nobody. Showing yourself from history, like, no, there's only one event where that could actually be. That's why when you said, I'm like, yeah, you don't know how spot on you is today. For once. All right. It says the question arises, was the traditional story of the expulsion due to the traumatic consequences of that revolt? Describing the conclusion of the revolt, Cassius Dio wrote, 50 of their most important outposts and 985 of their most famous villages were razed to the ground or destroyed to the ground. 580,000 men were slain in the various raids and battles, and the number of those that perished by famine, disease, and fire was past finding out. Thus, nearly the whole of Judea was made desolate. Jerusalem was to be renamed Aelia Capitolina, and circumcised men were for some time barred from entering it. That's crazy. You gonna check to see if somebody's circumcised? That stuff is wild to me. Yeah.
You must like it. You must like doing that job.
Yeah. Definitely got a love for it.
Yeah.
For 3 years, harsh restrictions were imposed on the local populace. 3 years, especially around the capital, and religious persecution was intensified. Capital fighters were probably taken away, and others must have fled from the area, but the Judean masses were not exiled even in 135 CE. So Mashiach died somewhere between 29 and 33 AD, right? Jerusalem was destroyed in 70 AD. So no, people aren't getting deported even at 135 AD. So there had to be an event to where we get to all nations, right? I'm just trying to show y'all. Again, y'all are the people. Y'all are the time clock. The name Provincia, Judea, was changed to Provincia Syria Palestine, later Palestine. But its population in the 2nd century CE remained predominantly Judeans and Samaritans. That's the people. And it started to flourish again for 1 or 2 generations after the end of the revolt. By the end of the 2nd century and the beginning of the 3rd, not only had most of the farming population recovered and agricultural production stabilized, but the country's culture attained what came to be thought of as its golden age in time of Rabbi Judah Hanasi. The year 220 AD saw the completion, Yeah, that's still AD. It's the same. The CE just means common era. The year 22 AD saw the completion and final arrangement of the 6 parts of the Mishnah, a far more decisive historical event than the Bar Kokhba revolt in the development of Jewish identity and religion. So what was the origin of the great myth about the exiling of the Jewish people following the destruction of the temple? So he's breaking down how there wasn't an event at that point in time to where, again, mass deportation. Again, this is the invention of the Jewish people, Shlomo Sand. It was in the Babylonian Talmud, however, this is where they get this idea, that the first statements appear linking the exile with the fall of the Second Temple, right? A Jewish community had existed in Babylonia continuously since the 6th century BC, and we'll just stop at that point for there. So now, going back to the book, who is Esau Edom? Jeremiah, if you don't mind. Because we got to know about our enemy. Just start under Esau-Edom.
Okay. To help answer the question of who is Esau Edom, the first necessary step is to examine the racial and genealogical history of Esau and his descendants.
Now, with every writer, you have to chew up the meat and spit out the bones.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Go ahead, read the next.
All right. Esau was the firstborn of Isaac, and thus was heir to the birthright derived from the direct racial lineage of Adam to Noah to Abraham. Thus, Esau was racially an Edomite, a Semite, and a Hebrew, the racial stock of the white race.
Now, we know that that's not true. You see the foolery?
Hebrew, the racial stock of the white race.
We know that it's the Caucasian sons of Japheth, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So they'll have truth and then they'll mix in that tomfoolery.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted y'all to see that. Okay.
Just as Esau despised his birthright when he sold it to Jacob, he also despised his race by marrying strange women outside of his race.
He did. He married a lot of them. Look at the different types of women he married.
Okay. Esau married the daughters of Canaan or Canaanites, the daughters of Heth or Hittites, the daughters of Ishmael, the daughters of Hivites, and had intermarried with the Horites. These interracial marriages were a grief of mind to Isaac and Rebekah, Esau's parents. The descendants of Esau from these marriages became known as Edomites or as Edom. The Edomites also possessed some Israelite blood by intermarriages, as in the case of Solomon.
Right.
Esau and the Edomites dwelt in Mount Seir, which Yahweh gave to Esau for a possession. Joshua, this land was also known as Idumea, the land of Edom. Mount Seir lies south
Okay,
of
keep going.
the Dead Sea, stretching south to its seaport of Elah.
Y'all see it right here?
And included the ravine known as Petra. Okay, yeah. After the conquest of Judah by the Babylonians, some of the Edomites who had mixed with the Jews in their land resettled with them in Judea.
So Edomites that had mixed with our people, right? Now this is in the Babylonian captivity. They always try to stay close to us.
Yeah,
They know us very well.
yeah. 2 centuries later, all of Edom was driven out of Mount Seir. The Edomites were driven from Petra westward by the, how you say that?
Nabateans.
Nabateans in 312 BC. And before the middle of the 2nd century BC, they were occupying not only southern Judah, but also Hebron and the country to its north as far as Bethzar.
So they're occupying land that's not theirs. They're occupying
Yeah.
our land, right?
Yeah.
Okay, y'all see that? Okay.
The Nabateans occupied Mount Seir, and the Edomites were driven to the old territory of Judah. The Maccabean family had ruled Judea.
Wait a minute. A remnant of the true Judahites, or
Yeah, listen to parentheses. The Maccabean family, a remnant of the true Judahites, had ruled Judea from 166 to 37 BC, and under Judas Maccabee, recaptured the city of Hebron from the Edomites in 164 BC during the time of John
Hyrcanus.
Hyrcanus, a nephew of Judas. The Judahites were again faced with, I don't like how the years go backwards. Like,
Yeah, so it goes backwards to 0 and then from 0 up.
that's crazy. The hostility of the Idumeans. Hyrcanus confronted the Edomites, causing a decisive change in the relations between the two factions. John Hyrcanus conquered the whole of Edom and undertook the forced conversion of its inhabitants to Judaism. Therefore, the Edomites became a section of the Jewish people.
So what does it mean by the forced conversion?
It made them.
Right. So if they weren't circumcised, they had to become circumcised.
Yeah.
They had to do all of that stuff, right? He made them do that, and so they became one with us, right? So this is another way, huh?
Like you said there earlier in the lesson about how Ashkenaz always what the Chinese or the Asians were saying that they're good for stealing people's names.
Yep, name stealers.
And cultures got the same deal there.
Yeah.
Exactly down the same vein, because that's what they do. And again, at this point in time, in the time of the Maccabees, he made them become a part of us. That's why earlier in the lesson, we went to the Jewish Encyclopedia, 1925, volume 5, when it literally says, page 41, Edom is in modern Jewry. So it's been their habit to pretend to be us, to want to be a part of us, right? So again, we're going over Esau, Edom, and hopefully this is going to kind of tie some of this together. So keep going.
Thus, at this juncture of time, the Edomites were then incorporated with the Jewish nation, and their country was called by the Greeks and Romans Idumea. But the tide turned in favor of the Edomite faction when Julius Caesar made Antipater an Edomite, procurator of Judea in 47 BC.
Now this is before Mashiach, right? Okay.
And when Antipater was killed 4 years later, his son Herod gained power but was rejected by the Judahites.
Right.
Herod shrewdly gained the support of Rome. With a Roman army at his heels, he returned to Palestine. And after a 6-month siege, He captured Jerusalem and became king of Judea in 37 BC.
So that's what's not in the text. They made sure that that part was not put in the text, that that stuff happened. So after the Maccabees and all that, this stuff happened with Herod, right? 6 months sieging, and it's going to get a little bit more into what he did.
We
So
already knew Herod was evil anyway, though.
yeah, but we didn't know. We're about to read about what he did.
Yeah.
Read this next part.
Herod was a shrewd and unscrupulous tyrant and was despised by the Judites because he was an Idumean and not one of their own stock. Herod hated the people of Judah,
Hatred.
and one of his first acts was to execute 45 leaders, or 45 of the leaders of the old
Aristocracy.
Yeah, aristocracy, to eliminate any rivalry for leadership.
So
That's
his
crazy,
first
bro.
act, he just going to execute.
That's crazy.
So as soon, oh yeah, I'm gonna knock him off the set. Yeah, you, all y'all did.
I'm gonna prove 45 points right now.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
As soon as he came in, killing our people.
Golly. Dude, the devil, he was crazy.
Devil, man.
Having secured the kingship, Herod next destroyed the priestly line of Hyrcanus.
That's the Levites.
Yeah. The last being Antigonus, who taunted Herod with his Idumean origin and asserted that the kingdom shall fall on one of the royal family. Finally, he murdered Aristobulus, the last of the Aaronic high priest.
So now there's no more priest to be a high priest through the line of Aaron.
Yeah.
Murdering all of them. So you see the name of who he murdered, right?
Yeah.
Okay, keep reading.
Herod then sought to affiliate himself with the high priesthood through marrying, what's that, Mariam? That's, oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
His sister, the one he just
Yep.
killed?
Yep.
How you say that name? Mariam?
Mariamne,
Yeah,
Aristobulus.
Yeah, whatever. Sister of the daughter of the high priest.
So he gonna kill the last high priest and all of them, and then he gonna marry his sister.
The one he just killed, yeah.
Yeah.
The guy he just killed, yeah.
This is Herod from a quote unquote New Testament. Wicked
man.
devil.
I'm
Wicked.
gonna kill your brother, and then we gonna get married.
Yeah, we gonna get together.
Yeah.
I'm doing it for you.
Yeah. I'm doing it for us. We're gonna start our own nation.
Said I did it for love.
That's sick, boy.
That's wild, bro. I was reading this stuff. I'm like, you can't make this crap up.
Wow. Herod even rebuilt the temple as it was in ruins from repeated sieges,
By who?
part of which Herod was responsible for by his attack upon the city. The temple of Yah became, in a sense, Herod's temple.
Yeah, because he rebuilt it.
We thus find that in the years just before the time of Christ, Judea was controlled by an Edomite faction.
Were y'all tracking that?
Now,
They were controlled by them, right?
an
Okay.
Edomite faction who usurped the Judite name, land, and heritage.
So they took it all over, so they would be Jewish.
Wow.
Does that sound familiar to anybody?
Yeah, Khazar, yeah.
So they were
It
Jewish.
might be family, yeah.
Just want y'all to see the
Oh, man. So they
coincidences.
who usurped the Judite name, land, and heritage. That sounds awfully familiar. Under Hyrcanus, the Edomites were forced to be part of Judean culture. But under Herod, the Herodian faction had control over the Judeans' culture and way of life.
And this is how you know that Esau is still really running things, because we're always looking for a superhero. I know we talked about this before. Heroes show up for Herodian, which is an Edomite. We need to be looking like create our own super Hebrews.
Yeah.
Set a superhero.
Yeah.
All that goes back to Herod and Esau. They always give their ancestors honor.
Yeah. Confounding the matter is the fact that some Judites had intermixed with Edomite, Canaanite, and other alien stock at the time they returned from the Babylonian captivity.
Aliens.
Yeah, so different races or different aliens.
I know where he went. Wait, aliens. Wait a minute.
Oh, man. These mixed blood people were also hostile toward the Judean Israelites.
So then nobody really like us, even though we are the
Rails
original
on
stock.
everybody. They don't like them.
So when Mashiach came into that environment, that was a hostile environment he came into.
Yeah.
Trying to restore order to the people. There was an Edomite faction ruling everything, pretending to be us. So what ended up happening is Herod, he
So
implemented
the high priest
a
was-
different high priesthood.
Yeah, that's the one. That's why they killed Yeshua. Yeah.
So Herod and them, they had a completely different high priesthood
That's why
going
they
on.
hated- That's why they hated Yeshua so much. That makes sense now. 'Cause
Yeah, man. They hate us because they ain't us.
That's crazy. Man, that's crazy. That's crazy.
But then you gotta remember now, you got a big portion of, when you start studying the history over in that Middle East, even you have a bunch of Ishmaelites that are actually Edomites.
Yep.
That's why.
Because they mixed together too.
That's why, because you look at a lot of your Arab people,
Yeah, that is going.
they're very dark complexion like us. A lot of them you can't tell from us.
Yeah, that's
But
true.
they're not Israelites.
Yeah,
They're straight up Edomites.
yeah, yeah. The land was not the king of Judah, but the nation of Jews. Historically, the Edomites became known as Jews, a term derived from Judea, which was derived from the name Judah, being the royal line of Israel, though they were never of Judea.
Right.
Or Israel.
Because those people are not, right?
Wow.
So this book is breaking stuff down, right?
They're trying to force it on
So
themselves.
that's why I got all these different books. I'm trying to just piece things together so y'all can see this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Okay, keep going.
Okay, during Titus' siege of Jerusalem from 66 through 70 AD, 20,000 Idumeans appeared before Jerusalem to fight in behalf of the zealots who were besieged in the temples. About 97,000 inhabitants of Judea were taken captive, and an unknown number had fled either before or during the siege. This is the last mention of the Edomites as a people in history.
Now that's kind of crazy, right?
Yeah, they changed their name.
70 AD. You
Yeah.
don't hear nothing more about these people.
Yeah.
It's like modern day scholars, oh, they all died. No, they didn't.
No, they changed their
Y'all
name.
lie. You probably an Edomite. Lying sucker.
Because you is an Edomite,
Yeah.
Yet Bible prophecy indicates that Edom would be an enemy of Israel in later times, or latter times. We find that their own connection to a present-day people and religion is with the Jews and Judaism. We thus need to track back the origin.
Trace back.
Trace back the origin of the Jews to see who they are and how they fit into the puzzle of who is Esau Edom, the origin of Jews. The Jews of today fall within two main types, the Sephardic Jew and the Ashkenazi Jew.
Right.
The Sephardim are also known as Spanish Jews and constitute about 5% of the Jews in the world. The Ashkenazium are the East European Jews, which were found in Poland, Russia, Germany, and Western Asia. This group of Jews make up 90% of the so-called Jews in the world. Many reference and historical sources have unequivocally identified that the bulk of the Ashkenazi Jews were derived from a people known as Khazars.
So that's all three of these sources coming back to Khazars.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Origin Jewish Encyclopedia of 1905 revealed that the main stock of the Jews came from the Asiatic people known as Khazars or Khazars. Khazars, a people of Turkish origin whose life and history are interwoven with the very beginnings of the history of the Jews of Russia. Historical evidence points to the region of the Urals as home of the Khazars. So that's probably like Dagestan and Chechnya and other crazy places. Okay. The Khazars were a nomadic people who had no traces of Hebraic culture. They had been following a pagan and sex-oriented religion until they had officially embraced Judaism in 740 AD.
Right.
While rejecting Christianity and Mohammedanism, the Jewish author and historian Arthur Koestler,
Kessler.
also concludes that the majority of the East European Jews and hence of world Jewry is of Khazar and not of Semitic origin. In the beginning of his book, he states the large majority of surviving Jews in the world is of Eastern European and thus perhaps mainly of Khazar origin. If so, this would mean that their ancestors came not from the Jordan, but from the Volga, which is in Russia, and not from Canaan, but from the Caucasus, which is in Russia. And that genetically, they are more closely related to Hun, Uyghur, and Magar tribes than to the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
There you go.
So that's a Jewish man stating, because like we read that before, right? So I'm going to read this slide. So then he says, this is Arthur Kessler again from part of it from the 13th tribe. Then it says, the Khazar government was destroyed by the Slavs of Russia in 1016 AD, right? So Russia always destroys the Khazars. Around 1200 AD, the land was invaded by the hordes of Genghis Khan. There it is again. These two events caused large numbers of Khazars to migrate to Poland and Western Russia, forming the cradle of Western Jewry. There is an abundance of ancient place names in the Ukraine and Poland which derive from Khazar, right? As the Khazars left their homeland of Khazaria and migrated north and west, they lost their name and became known as Jews. There they are again, stealing people's names.
People don't realize if you do Judaism, they call you a Jew. So that's that's another reason, like,
Yeah.
because you do Judaism, it should mean you a Jew. So,
Yeah, you're not ethnically a Jew. You were like religiously, right?
yeah.
So they lost their name and became known as Jews. Their Yiddish language and alphabet is not that of Israelites, Phoenician Greek style, but an amalgamation of Aramaic, medieval German, Slovak, and Russian dialects. The best historical evidence, therefore, shows that the Jews are not descended directly from the Israelites of the Bible, but derive much of their ancestry from the Khazars and other people of the Turkish Asiatic blood. The Khazars are also of Edomite stock, and both stocks make up the present-day Jews. As the historian H.G. Wells states, Edomites were made Jews, we read that earlier, and the Khazars were mainly Jews in South Russia. The main part of Jewry never was in Judea and had never come out of Judea. According to the Jewish Encyclopedia, the original stock of the Khazars came from the land of Edom. So, like, there's a strange conspiracy going on about this. Are they? Cause so it's Japheth and it's Esau. It's kind of hard to just pinpoint it just being one of them.
Exactly.
And mix Horite in there also, but it's mainly those two stocks, right, that are ruling the world right now. So I wanted y'all to see that it says, according to the Jewish Encyclopedia, the original stock of the Khazars came from the land of Edom, the Idumeans, Turkish people, right? You see that in Kessler. So we're gonna go to the next slide, Jamal, if you don't mind.
What does that say?
Just start at the Seir Mountains.
Okay. The Seir Mountains are known other than the original land of Esau, Edom. Thus dwelt Esau in Mount Seir. Esau is Edom. Seir was a mountain range south of the Dead Sea and was also known as the land of Edom. The Seir Mountains were the home of the Edomites for nearly a millennium. Thus, it should be no surprise that migrants from that land would recall the name of their original homeland.
Right.
If the Khazars did originally dwell near the Seir Mountains, then the Khazars and thus world Jewry are racially of Edomite stock. But how? And when did the Edomites get to Khazaria? There is evidence that in the 6th century BC, some of the Edomites fled their homeland of Seir and migrated north. After the fall of Jerusalem in 586 BC, the Edomites began to press northward.
So according to Ezekiel 36, this is what they're saying.
The extent and ultimate destination of this northward trek is found in history, but it is likely that it brought some Edomites to the region of Khazaria. The Edomites were also cast out of Palestine and dispersed in different directions in 70 AD. When the Romans sacked Jerusalem, many thousands of these people are known to have migrated northward to Asia Minor, and around the Black Sea region.
And that's from the Jewish Encyclopedia stating that.
Yeah. That's all that.
So it's right now it's really, you just can't, you really can't just look at somebody because of their skin complexion or anything and say, oh, this son of gun's an Israelite, this one's a Edomite.
Like them camps be doing, you can't do that.
Because there's a lot of, if you really check historically, you have a lot of Canaanites, which are the seed line of Ham, that are as white as dude across the street.
You are not lying. You are 100% right.
I mean, that's just a fact.
Yeah.
And we know through history that the Canaanites, because of some stuff that they did, they were cursed with white skin, a lot of them. But you got to remember that through history, these people have always intermingled and bounced back. So even though you may have had leprosy, cursed with it, if you went ahead, your father or your mother ended up going ahead and messing with a Hamite or an Israelite, it's going to go ahead and bounce back and come back. The complexion, because black is
It's the dominant gene.
So that's why it's kind of, you can't really pinpoint it, and it's really understandable what Hamashiach was said, that he's looking, unless you honor him in spirit and in truth, you can't enter the kingdom of God, because he knows that a lot of us is just jacked up, period. Because the bloodline's been, contaminated. If you want to use the word contaminated.
Oh, that's a fact. That's a fact, huh?
He knew all this was gonna happen anyways, and that's why his commandment was the most important one is to love, because you don't know who is who.
You don't. You definitely know, because as we're seeing, we can't really tell the difference between the Khazar and the Edomite. I mean. So, because we're only gonna do 2 more slides. I have like 20 something. We're only gonna do 2 more. When we talk of racial mixtures that brought about the Jews of today, we must highlight the events surrounding the Babylonian captivity of Judah. The remainder of the Judah nation, which included some of the tribes of Benjamin, Levi, and Simeon, was taken captive by Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. But at the same time, Edom was also put under Babylonian rule, causing some of the Edomites to be brought to Babylon. So again, even there, we're mixing with them there. When Persia overthrew Babylon, King Cyrus issued a decree allowing the Judahites to return to their land and rebuild the temple. However, only about 50,000 returned to Palestine. Some of them had apparently departed to their kinsmen in Europe. However, many of the Judahites and Benjamites preferred to remain in Babylonia, becoming a part of the indigenous population. Those remaining had intermarried with the Babylonians and Edomites that were in the land and adopted their religion and law, the Babylonian Talmud. That's where we went wrong, which became the foundation of Judaism. These then became the Babylonian Jews. Then many of the people of the land became Jews. Esther 8, verse 17. Although they are called Jews, a term which is derived from the word Judah, these people are not true Judahites, but became a mixed Edomite, Hittite, or hybridized people consisting of Canaanites, Judahites, Babylonians, Ishmaelites, Huns, Khazars. When they migrated to other lands throughout the centuries, they retained their Jew or Judahite identity, but brought with them the religion of Babylon. So
they take that name Jew because you from Judaism, and bro, you can't just say you want to practice Judaism.
There's going to be a whole lot of, when
confusion.
When our books, when Hamashiach opens the books and reveals, there's going to be a whole lot of us that look like us, and
find out that they Esau.
I gotta say, nah, you not by bloodline, you're not an Israelite.
That's a fact.
You've been up there, you're a Hamite, or actually, you're an Edomite, or you might have been, because there's a bunch of Khazarian people. Because remember, everybody started off melanated. Because a lot of people over there, the original German people are actually dark. Everybody started off highly melanated.
They were described as being swarthy.
Yeah, so you really don't know until that day comes. Now, I feel that I am because I just know a little bit of my heritage, that my people are from, Gullah Geechee and from Trinidad, a lot of them.
Oh, yeah, you
I got
good.
a good idea that I'm an Israelite, but still, I still not 100%. I got.
Yeah, we still got to live right and do the best we can.
There's no guarantee unless I live right that I'm gonna enter the kingdom anyway.
Yep.
Regardless of what I'm being.
That's the only way you can guarantee it.
Yeah.
But we're gonna stop here.
Understand when you call me red.
Yeah, clarify what you trying to say, brother. What you mean red? Well, David was called red already too, though, so it just depends. But I know it's a lot of information. Hope it's not an information overload. But Elder, you mind praying us out?
Sure. But yeah, we thank you for this gathering here, for this holy Shabbat, and opening up our eyes and our ears, and just enlightening us on these historical events. And hopefully, Father, it'll go broadcast across the world, this gathering, and hopefully your children, and whether they be the natural natty root, or even those that's grafted in, hopefully they'll take something from this lesson. We give all praises and glory to you, Yahuwah and Yahawashai. So be it.
So be it, Amen. So please subscribe, hit the notification bell, like and share our content. And as always, until next time, Shalom, tribe.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.